The morning sky on Valoran Prime shimmered with colors that Earth's rainbow could never match. Crystal towers stretched toward the clouds like frozen music, and gardens floated in the air on beds of soft blue light. The Valorans moved through, their city with the grace of dancers, their silver skin catching the light of 3 suns. Dr. Cathara stood on his laboratory balcony, watching children play in the flower fields below. Their laughter echoed like wind chimes in the gentle breeze. He held a small device in his hands, a communication crystal that linked directly to Earth. For 50 years, his people had been secret friends with the humans. The Galactic Council would kill them all if they knew. The humans were different, from other species. They were young and wild, but they had something the galaxy had forgotten: hope. The Valorans had watched them grow from primitive tribes to space travelers in just a few thousand years. Most species took millions of years to reach the stars. Humans did it while the Valorans were still learning to speak their names. "The transmission is ready," said his assistant, Nelthara, her voice soft like flowing water. She was young, barely past her first century. To humans, she would seem ancient, but to Valorans, she was just a child. Cathara activated the crystal. Far away on Earth, in a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, human scientists would receive his message. Today's lesson was about medical technology, how to heal burns that would normally take months to recover from. The humans always asked about weapons, but the Valorans only shared knowledge of healing and peace. "Tell them about the harmony fields," Nelthara suggested, "the ones that help broken bones mend faster." Cathara smiled. The young always wanted to help more than was safe. "Perhaps next time. We must be careful. If the Council discovers our friendship with Earth..." A shadow fell across the crystal city. Cathara looked up and felt his heart skip their rhythm. Ships filled the sky, massive, dark vessels that blocked out the suns. The Galactic Council's enforcement fleet hung above Valoran Prime like storm, clouds made of metal and death. "Impossible," Nelthara whispered. "We were so careful." The communication crystal in Cathara's hands began flashing red. An emergency message from Earth appeared in the air. Just 2 words. "Are you safe?" Before he could answer, the sky filled with fire. Commander Zethkar of the Drakmori stood on his command ship's bridge, his reptilian eyes cold as winter stars. His scales were black with red markings that showed his rank, Supreme Executor of Council Law. Behind him, his officers waited for orders. They were all different species, but they shared one thing: complete loyalty to the Council's rule. "Sir," reported his communications officer, a insect-like Vexitari whose voice buzzed like angry bees. "We have confirmed the illegal technology transfers. The Valorans have been sharing knowledge with the humans for decades." Zethkar's tail lashed once, a sign of anger among his people. "The humans are a plague species, violent, unpredictable, dangerous. They multiply too fast and consume everything they touch. The Valorans should have known better." The tactical officer, a pale blue humanoid with 6 arms, displayed a holographic map of the planet below. All major cities identified. Population, centers marked. No military installations detected. "Of course not," Zethkar said with disgust. "The Valorans are pacifists. They probably think we're here for a peaceful visit." He turned to face his fleet. "Begin the cleansing operation. Total sterilization. No survivors." "Sir," the communications officer hesitated. "The Valorans are trying to surrender. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, offering to comply with any council demands." Zethkar's laugh was like grinding stone. "Too late for that. They chose their side when they befriended the humans. Execute Order 77 Alpha." The first beam struck the floating gardens. Flowers that had bloomed for thousands of years turned to ash in seconds. The crystal towers, which had stood since before most species learned to make fire, cracked and fell like broken dreams. Cathara grabbed Nelthara's hand and ran through the laboratory corridors. Around them, the building shook as energy weapons tore through the crystal walls. Other Valorans ran past them, their faces showing confusion rather than fear. They couldn't understand why anyone would want to hurt them. The emergency shelter, Cathara gasped. If we can reach the emergency shelter. An explosion threw them to the ground. When the smoke cleared, Nelthara was bleeding silver blood from a cut on her forehead. Cathara helped her up, and they kept running. They reached the main laboratory, just as another blast opened a hole in the ceiling. Through the gap, they could see council soldiers in black armor dropping down on anti-gravity platforms. Their weapons were already firing. Cathara pushed Nelthara behind a desk and activated the emergency protocol on his communication crystal. Earth Station, this is Valoran Prime. We are under attack. The council has found us. They're killing everyone. The crystal flickered. On the other side of the galaxy, he could imagine the humans receiving his message. What would they do? What could they do? Earth had only a few dozen ships, all built in secret with Valoran help. The council had thousands. A council soldier rounded the corner, a Drakmori like their commander with eyes like yellow fire. It raised its weapon toward Nelthara. Please, Cathara stepped in front of the young female. She's just a student. She's never hurt anyone. The soldier's laugh was cruel. Neither did the humans' planet killers until they learned to build them. The energy beam hit Cathara in the chest. As he fell, he managed to keep his hand on the communication crystal. Earth. Remember us. Remember what they did here. Don't let them do this to anyone else. Nelthara caught him as he collapsed. She was crying now, silver tears mixing with her blood. Why? She asked the soldier. Why are you doing this? Because you helped them, the Drakmori said simply. And now they'll help you die. The weapon fired again. From orbit, Zethkar watched the crystal cities burn. The operation was proceeding perfectly. His weapons were precise. They would leave the planet intact but remove every trace of Valoran life. In a few hours, the world would be ready for colonization by a more appropriate species. Sir, his communications officer reported, we've intercepted several transmissions to Earth. The humans know what's happening here. Good, Zethkar said. Let them know. Let them understand what happens to species that defy the Council. Fear will make them more reasonable when we arrive at their planet. He didn't notice the small communication probe that launched from the planet's surface just before the last Valoran city died. It was disguised as debris, moving slowly to avoid detection. Inside it was Nelthara's final message. Not just words, but recorded memories of the massacre. She had used the last of her strength to activate an old Valoran technology that could store experiences as data. The probe would take 3 years to reach Earth. When it arrived, the humans would not just hear about what happened on Valoran Prime. They would see it through Valoran eyes. They would feel what it was like to watch children die for the crime of friendship. As the last crystal tower fell and Valoran Prime became a graveyard world, Zethkar ordered his fleet to begin the journey to Earth. He expected the humans to surrender when they saw his power. After all, what could one primitive planet do against the might of the Galactic Council? He would learn the answer to that question sooner than he thought. The emergency session began at midnight in Geneva. Leaders from every nation on Earth sat around a table that had seen peace treaties and trade agreements. Tonight, it would witness the birth of something darker. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the head of the table, her face pale but her voice steady. Behind her, a holographic display showed the smoking ruins of Valoran Prime. The images had arrived just hours ago, carried by Nelthara's memory probe. 3 billion Valorans are dead, she said quietly. Men, women, children, all of them killed, because they were our friends. President Martinez of the American Federation leaned forward. How long do we have? Zethkar's fleet is moving toward Earth at maximum speed. They'll arrive in 18 months. Chen pressed a button and the display changed to show a massive armada of dark ships. 2,000 vessels, each one capable of burning a continent. Chancellor Wang of the Asian Alliance shook her head. Our combined militaries have maybe 50 ships that could fight in space, and those are built with Valoran technology that half our scientists still don't understand. Then we build more, said President Okafor of the African Union. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of mountains. We build everything we can. Director Petrov of the European Federation pulled up economic data on his tablet. The cost would be enormous. We'd have to convert every factory, every shipyard, every resource to the war effort. Money won't matter if we're all dead, Admiral Chen replied. The Council doesn't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They come to your world, kill everyone, and move on to the next target. Prime Minister Nakamura of the Pacific Confederation stood up slowly. She was the oldest person in the room, old enough to remember when nuclear war almost ended the world. Show them the rest of the probe's message. Chen hesitated. Are you sure? It's difficult to watch. Show them. The hologram changed. Suddenly, everyone in the room was seeing through Nelthara's eyes. They felt her terror as the Council soldiers approached. They experienced her confusion. Why would anyone hurt the Valorans? They had never fought a war, never conquered a planet, never hurt anyone. The memory showed Kithara dying, his last words a plea for Earth to remember. Then came Nelthara's final moments, her silver blood pooling on the laboratory floor as she used the last of her strength to send this message across the galaxy. When it ended, the room was silent. They didn't just kill our allies, President Martinez said finally. They killed our friends. The Valorans saved us from 20 different diseases, Chancellor Wong added. Their medical technology has extended human life by 30 years on average. They asked for nothing in return, President Okafor continued. No trade deals, no military alliances, no territory. They helped us because they believed in us. Admiral Chen watched the leaders around the table. She could see the change happening in their faces. Humanity was waking up to something it had tried to forget, the part of their nature that had conquered every continent on Earth, that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. What do you need? Asked Director Petrov. Everything, Chen replied. Every shipyard, every factory, every mine. We need to militarize technologies that were meant for peace. The Valorans gave us healing devices. We'll turn them into weapons. They gave us faster-than-light communication. We'll use it to coordinate attacks. They gave us clean energy. We'll use it to power warships. Prime Minister Nakamura pulled up a global map. The Valorans also gave us something else, hope for the future, a reason to reach for the stars. She looked around the table. Now we reach for them with guns. The transformation began within hours. In Detroit, car factories stopped making vehicles and started building ship components. In China, electronics manufacturers began producing weapons targeting systems. In Nigeria, oil platforms were converted to mine asteroids for raw materials. Dr. Sarah Kim had been working on Valoran healing technology for 15 years. She understood how their devices could repair human tissue at the cellular level. Now she stood in a laboratory in South Korea, staring at a prototype that could do the opposite. It's ready for testing, her assistant reported. The young man looked sick. But Dr. Kim, this goes against everything the Valorans taught us. The Valorans are dead, Kim replied coldly, killed by creatures who only understand violence. She picked up the device. It looked exactly like a Valoran healing wand, but the energy patterns were reversed. This will target reptilian DNA specifically. It will cause cellular breakdown in Drakmori physiology. You're talking about biological warfare. I'm talking about justice. Similar scenes played out across the planet. Physicists who had studied Valoran faster-than-light technology now worked on making human ships invisible to Council sensors. Engineers who had learned Valoran construction methods now designed weapons that could crack open asteroid-sized battle stations. Captain Marcus Torres stood in the Mars shipyards, watching workers assemble humanity's new fleet. The ships didn't look like the elegant vessels of other species. They were ugly, functional, covered in armor and bristling with weapons. Human engineers had taken Valoran peace technology and twisted it into instruments of war. They're calling it the Ghost Fleet, his chief engineer reported. Stealth systems based on Valoran cloaking technology, but modified for warfare instead of exploration. Torres nodded. How many ships will be ready when Zethkar arrives? If we maintain current production rates, maybe 300? Not enough. Sir, we're already working people 20-hour shifts. The factories are running at maximum capacity. Torres looked at the work crews. They came from every nation on Earth, every ethnicity, every background. Rich and poor, young and old, all working together with a purpose humanity hadn't felt since the Second World War. Then we work harder. The message arrived 6 months before Zethkar's fleet reached Earth. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every human language. The Council's ultimatum was simple: surrender for processing or face total extermination. Admiral Chen stood before the United Nations General Assembly, now converted into a war council. Representatives from every nation sat in grim silence as she read the Council's demands. They want us to dismantle our space program, destroy all ships, submit to Council oversight for the next 1,000 years. She looked up from the message. In exchange, they promise us quick deaths. The Chinese delegate stood up. What is our response? Chen smiled for the first time in months. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Our response is 300 ships, and the fury of a species that doesn't forgive. In the months that followed, something changed in humanity. The hopeful, curious species that had first reached for the stars was gone. In its place was something harder, colder, more focused. They had learned to turn healing into harm, peace into war, love into rage. The memorial gardens where Valoran crystal flowers still bloomed became training grounds for soldiers. Children learned mathematics by calculating missile trajectories. Artists painted propaganda posters showing Earth's flag planted on the Council's capital world. The day before Zethkar's fleet arrived at Earth, Admiral Chen stood in her command center, watching the final preparations. 300 human warships hung in space around Earth like angry wasps defending their hive. They weren't elegant like Valoran vessels or massive like Council dreadnoughts. They were purely human, adaptive, unpredictable, dangerous. Admiral, her communications officer reported, incoming message from the Council fleet. Put it through. Zethkar's reptilian face appeared on the main screen. Humans of Earth. You have seen what happened to your Valoran friends. Surrender now and your deaths will be swift. Chen stepped forward. Commander Zethkar, you made one mistake. And what was that? You killed our friends. Chen's smile was sharp as broken glass. Now you get to learn why the rest of the galaxy should have left us alone. The screen went dark. 18 months of preparation were over. The war for Earth was about to begin. Captain Marcus Torres floated in the command chair of the UES Retribution, watching Earth grow smaller behind them. His ship was one of 50 vessels in the first strike group, the Ghost Fleet's opening move in humanity's war against the Galactic Council. All ships report ready, Captain, said Lieutenant Park from the navigation station. She was barely 25, young enough to have grown up during the war preparations. Her generation knew nothing but training for this moment. Stealth systems. Active, reported Chief Engineer Davis. Valoran cloaking technology is working perfectly. We're invisible to their sensors. Torres nodded. The irony wasn't lost on him. They were using peaceful Valoran technology to hunt down the creatures who had murdered its creators. Set course for the Zerion mining facility. Maximum stealth speed. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Earth's Ghost Fleet slipped through Council space like shadows. Their ships were designed to be invisible, not just to sensors, but to the mind. Human psychologists had studied captured Council communications and learned how their enemies thought. Council species expected straight-line attacks, formal battle formations, honorable combat. They didn't expect humans. Target acquired, announced the tactical officer as they approached Zerion. Through the view screen, Torres could see the massive mining facility, a complex of asteroids held together by gravity generators and energy bridges. Council ships moved in predictable patterns around it, their crews probably bored from months of routine patrols. Analysis, Mr. Chen, Torres ordered. Tactical Officer Chen brought up a holographic display of the facility. 15 council vessels, on patrol, mixed classes, mostly Drakmori heavy cruisers and Vextari destroyers. The facility itself is lightly defended, but it's generating enough power to supply a small fleet. Weaknesses? The mining lasers, sir. They're designed to cut through asteroids, but if we could redirect them... Torres smiled grimly. Weapons of opportunity. I like it. Signal the fleet. We execute Plan Chaos in 10 minutes. The Ghost Fleet. Split into 3 groups. Torres led the main assault team toward the facility itself. Captain Smith took her destroyers to attack the patrol ships. Commander Johnson's stealth bombers would target the communication arrays first, cutting off any calls for help. Sir, Lieutenant Park said quietly, are we really going to do this? There might be civilians on that facility. Torres looked at her. The Council killed 3 billion Valorans, 3 billion pacifists who never hurt anyone. Yes, Lieutenant, we're really going to do this. The attack began at exactly 300 ship time. Johnson's bombers struck first, their missiles destroying communication equipment in brilliant flashes of light. The Council patrol ships turned toward the explosions, confused and uncoordinated. Smith's destroyers uncloaked behind them like wolves, appearing from fog. Human ships moved differently than Council vessels. They rolled and spun using 3-dimensional tactics that confused enemies used to fighting in orderly formations. Council captains tried to respond, but their crews couldn't predict where the human ships would be next. Ghost leader to all units, Torres broadcast. Primary target is in sight. Beginning facility approach. The Retribution and her sister ships dove toward the mining facility like birds of prey. Council defenders fired at them, but human ships were small and fast. They weaved between asteroids using the facility's own structure as cover. Tactical, lock onto those mining lasers, Torres ordered. I want control of their cutting systems. Sir, their security protocols are completely different from ours. It could take hours to break through. Torres grinned. Then we'll do it the human way. Ramming speed. The Retribution accelerated toward the main mining platform. At the last second, Torres ordered a hard turn that brought them alongside the control center. Human Marines empowered. Armor used explosive charges to blow through the hull and boarded the facility directly. Sergeant Williams led the assault team through corridors filled with surprised Council workers. Most had never seen combat. The mining facility was supposed to be safe, far behind the front lines that didn't exist yet. Control room secured, Williams reported over the comm. We have access to the mining systems. Excellent. Redirect all cutting lasers toward the Council patrol ships. What happened next would be talked about in Council military circles for decades to come. The mining facility's own weapons, lasers designed to cut through asteroid rock, swiveled toward the Council fleet. Beams of coherent energy that could slice through solid stone hit the patrol ships' hulls like swords through paper. Captain Vorthak of the Drakmori cruiser Domination watched in horror as his ship's hull began to glow and melt. How are they controlling our own facility? He roared at his tactical officer. Unknown, sir. The humans are using tactics we've never encountered. They're turning our own infrastructure against us. 3 Council ships died in the first minute. The others tried to retreat, but Smith's destroyers were waiting for them. Human ships fired weapons that Council sensors couldn't track. Missiles that looked like asteroids, energy beams disguised as solar radiation, kinetic rounds that were invisible until they hit. Sir, reported Lieutenant Park, we're receiving a transmission from the facility's Council commander. He wants to surrender. Torres considered this. Put him through. A pale insectoid face appeared on the screen. The Vextari commander's compound eyes showed clear terror. Human captain, we surrender. We yield to your superior tactics. Please show mercy according to the laws of civilized warfare. Mercy? Torres asked quietly. Did you show mercy to the Valorans? I was not at Valoran Prime. My people were not involved in that operation. But you didn't stop it either. You're part of the council that decided genocide was acceptable. Torres looked around his bridge. His crew was young, human, angry. There are no laws of civilized warfare anymore. You taught us that when you killed our friends. The transmission cut. Torres turned to his weapons officer. Target all remaining council vessels. No survivors. The battle lasted another 30 minutes. When it was over, every council ship in the Xerion system was debris. The mining facility was intact but under human control. Most importantly, the Ghost Fleet had struck without taking a single casualty. Sir, reported Chief Engineer Davis, we're detecting incoming council reinforcements. Looks like a full battle group. 30 ships at least. Torres nodded. Time to go. But first, he turned to the communications officer. Send a message to the incoming council ships. Tell them what happened here. Make sure they understand. Humans don't fight the way they expect. As the Ghost Fleet vanished back into stealth mode, they left behind more than just destroyed ships. They left behind fear. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council faced an enemy that fought without rules, without honor, without predictability. The message Torres sent was simple. This is humanity. We are coming for you. We will use your own weapons against you. We will turn your strengths into weaknesses. We will not show mercy because you showed none to our friends. Run. News of the Xerion massacre spread through council space within days. Military commanders who had never known defeat suddenly faced reports of impossible tactics and unstoppable enemies. The humans didn't just fight. They adapted, they improvised, they turned everything into a weapon. Admiral Zethkar received the reports in his flagship, still weeks away from Earth. His tactical officers presented analysis after analysis, but none of it made sense. Sir, reported his intelligence chief, the humans are using combat doctrines we've never encountered. They fight without formation, without predictable patterns. Our standard countermeasures are useless. Zethkar studied the tactical displays. Red markers showed 15 council facilities that had fallen to human attacks in just 2 weeks. Each attack was different, creative, devastating. How many ships have they lost? He asked. None, sir. The human fleet appears to be completely intact. Impossible. They only have a few hundred vessels. We have thousands. Yes, sir, but they're not fighting the way we expected. They strike from stealth, use our own infrastructure against us, and disappear before reinforcements can arrive. Zethkar's tail lashed in frustration. The humans were supposed to be primitive, predictable, easy to crush. Instead, they were proving more dangerous than any enemy the Council had ever faced. Recall the outer fleets, he ordered. Defensive formation around the core worlds. Let them come to us. Sir, that would mean abandoning half our territory. Better than losing it piece by piece to these creatures. Zethkar looked at the star map, where red markers showed human attacks spreading like a disease through council space. We're not fighting a military force, we're fighting something else, something that turns every battlefield into a trap. Back on the Retribution, Captain Torres reviewed the mission reports. The Ghost Fleet had struck 12 more targets since Xerion, each attack more successful than the last. His crews were learning, adapting, becoming more effective with every battle. Sir, Lieutenant Park approached his command chair. The Admiral wants a full tactical assessment. What should I tell her? Torres looked out at the stars, thinking of Nelthara's final message, of Cathara's dying words, of 3 billion. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 47 species argued, shouted, and demanded answers as holographic displays showed the steady collapse of their outer territories. Red markers spread across the star map like a plague, each one marking another human victory. High Counselor Vexithara of the Ethereal Collective floated above the assembly, her energy form flickering with distress. As beings of pure consciousness, the Ethereals could sense emotions across vast distances. What they felt from human space terrified them. The situation has become problematic, she announced, her voice echoing in the minds of every representative. The humans are not fighting as we predicted. Counselor Drakmor of the reptilian Drakmori slammed his clawed fist on his speaking platform. They're animals, primitives. How can they be defeating the combined might of the Council? Because they don't follow the rules. replied Counselor Zixandra of the Crystalline Shard High. Her voice chimed like breaking glass. Our military doctrines assume rational behavior, honor, predictable tactics. The humans have none of these limitations. The displays showed the latest intelligence reports. In 3 months, humanity had captured or destroyed over 200 council facilities. They had turned mining equipment into weapons, used communication, arrays to spread false orders, and somehow convinced entire garrisons to surrender without firing a shot. They're using psychological warfare, reported General Korthak, the Council's supreme military commander. Our soldiers are afraid to patrol empty space. They expect humans to appear from nowhere using tactics that shouldn't be possible. Counselor Vexithara's form brightened with alarm. It's worse than that. The rage fire burns differently in humans than in other species. Most creatures' anger fades with time and victory. Human anger grows stronger. It feeds on itself. Explain, demanded Drakmor. We can sense their emotional patterns across the galaxy. When they remember their fallen Valoran allies, their fury increases. Each victory doesn't satisfy them. It makes them want more. They're not fighting for territory or resources. They're fighting for revenge, and revenge has no logical stopping point. A new voice entered the debate. Prime Strategist Quental of the ancient Zephyri had remained silent for most of the session, but now she spoke with the authority of someone who had lived through a dozen galactic wars. I have reviewed all tactical reports, she said, her 4 arms manipulating holographic data with practiced efficiency. The humans are not merely winning battles, they are learning. Each engagement teaches them more about our weaknesses. They adapt faster than any species we have encountered. The chamber fell silent as she displayed a tactical analysis. At Xerion, they learned to use mining equipment as weapons. At Theta Station, they discovered how to hack our communication networks. At the Proxima shipyards, they figured out how to turn our own automated defenses against us. They don't just defeat us, they study us. What are our casualties? Asked Counselor Thisara of the aquatic drift high, her gills fluttering with nervousness. General Korthak's expression was grim. In 3 months of human attacks, we have lost over 50,000 trained soldiers, 300 ships, and 42 major installations. Human casualties are, he paused, 17 wounded, 0 killed. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Representative after representative stood to demand explanations, but Quental continued her analysis. The humans fight in a way that minimizes their own losses while maximizing psychological impact on us. They rescue single soldiers even when it would be tactically easier to abandon them, but they also sacrifice entire ships to achieve strategic objectives. Their behavior is completely unpredictable because they value things we don't understand. Meanwhile, in the deep space between star systems, Admiral Zethkar paced the bridge of his flagship like a caged predator. His fleet had been recalled from the advance on Earth, ordered to defend the Council's core worlds instead. It was humiliating but necessary. Sir, reported his intelligence officer, we've intercepted human communications. They're planning something called Operation Ghost Dance for the Rigel sector. Our response? Admiral Vorthak has positioned the 5th Fleet to intercept them, 300 ships in defensive formation around Rigel Prime. Zethkar studied the tactical display. And the humans are sending how many ships against this force? Intelligence estimates, maybe 30 vessels. 30 against 300. Zethkar's laugh was bitter. And somehow I'm worried that won't be enough. He was right to be worried. Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the Retribution, now leading a strike force of humanity's most experienced Ghost Fleet veterans. Around him, 30 ships prepared for what seemed like a suicidal assault. Sir, reported Lieutenant Park, long-range sensors confirm the Council fleet. They're arranged in a standard defensive sphere around Rigel Prime. Predictable, Torres muttered. They still think this is going to be a normal battle. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. All Ghost Fleet vessels, this is Ghost Leader. Remember, we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to break their spirit. The plan was insane by any traditional military standard. Instead of engaging the Council fleet directly, the humans would strike at Rigel Prime's infrastructure, while the defenders watched helplessly from orbit. Mining stations, communication relays, manufacturing facilities, all would be captured or destroyed while the Council fleet sat in perfect formation, unable to respond without leaving the planet undefended. Ghost Leader, this is Ghost 7, reported Captain Williams of the destroyer Vengeance. We're in position near the asteroid mining complex. Council defenses are minimal. They didn't expect an attack from this vector. Ghost Leader, this is Ghost 12, added Commander Kim of the stealth cruiser Retribution's Edge. Manufacturing platforms are defended by automated systems only. Looks like all their organic crews are aboard the main fleet. Torres smiled grimly. Perfect. Begin Operation Ghost Dance. Remember, maximum psychological impact. What followed was 3 hours of carefully orchestrated terror. Human ships appeared throughout the Rigel system like deadly magic tricks. They would strike a target, capture, or destroy it, and vanish before Council forces could respond. The massive defensive fleet orbiting Rigel Prime could only watch as their entire support infrastructure disappeared piece by piece. Admiral Vorthek, commanding the Council Defense Force, watched his tactical displays with growing horror. How are they everywhere at once? We have 300 ships. How are 30 humans making us look like amateurs? Sir, his tactical officer reported, they're not fighting us. They're ignoring us completely. They're destroying everything except us. Then we pursue them. Sir, if we break formation, we leave Rigel Prime undefended, and the humans are moving too fast. By the time we reach any engagement site, they're already gone. Vorthek realized the terrible truth. The humans had turned the Council's greatest strength, their massive fleet, into a weakness. 300 ships made an impressive defensive formation, but they were too slow and unwieldy to chase human raiders. The Council had been reduced to helpless observers of their own destruction. Sir, the communications officer announced, incoming message from the human fleet. Torres's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, displays showed Rigel Prime's industrial capacity burning. Admiral Vorthek, we could have destroyed your fleet today, but we chose not to. Why? Vorthek demanded. Because dead crews can't spread fear. Your 300 ships will return to Council space and tell everyone what happened here. How 30 human vessels made your entire fleet irrelevant. How we took apart an entire star system while you watched. You're monsters, Vorthek whispered. No, Torres replied coldly. We're students. And you taught us that mercy is weakness when you killed the Valorans. Consider this a graduation exercise. The transmission ended. Within an hour, the human fleet had vanished, leaving behind the wreckage of Rigel's industrial infrastructure and a Council fleet that had fired exactly 0 shots in its own defense. Back in the Great Chamber, the reports from Rigel sent the Council into panic. Representative after representative demanded action, answers, anything that could stop the human advance. We need to negotiate, suggested Councillor Thesara. Offer them territory, resources, anything they want. They don't want territory, Vexathera replied, her energy form flickering rapidly. They want us to pay for what we did to their friends, and payment to them means our complete destruction. General Korthak stood slowly. There is one option. We could activate the Omega Protocol. The chamber fell silent. The Omega Protocol was the Council's ultimate weapon, planet-killing devices positioned throughout their territory. It had never been used, considered too extreme even for the Council's harsh methods. You're talking about genocide, Councillor Zixandra's crystalline form chimed with horror. The extinction of the human species. They're going to extinct us if we don't stop them, Korthak replied. Every day they grow stronger. Every victory teaches them more about how to fight us. If we wait much longer, it won't matter how many weapons we have. The massive space station called Nexus Prime hung in the void like a mechanical planet. Home to 12 trillion beings from across the galaxy, it was the beating heart of the Galactic Council. Crystal spires stretched for hundreds of kilometers, connected by energy bridges that sparkled like frozen lightning. Ships from 1,000 worlds moved through designated traffic lanes in perfect order. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Nemesis, leading humanity's largest fleet toward this monument to galactic civilization. Around her, 600 human warships moved in formations that would have seemed impossible just 2 years ago. The entire Ghost Fleet was here, along with every ship Earth could build or repair. "Admiral," reported Commander Park, "long-range sensors show the Omega weapon charging. Energy signatures match our projections. It's a planet killer, aimed, directly at Earth." Chen nodded grimly. "Time to full charge?" 6 hours, 17 minutes. "And our ETA at Nexus Prime?" 4 hours, 53 minutes. "Cutting it close." Chen activated the fleet communications. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. The Council has shown their true nature. They're preparing to murder every man, woman, and child on Earth. We have one chance to stop them." She paused, looking at the tactical display that showed Nexus Prime growing larger ahead of them. "I won't lie to you. What we're about to do goes against everything humanity once stood for. We're going to use weapons designed for healing to cause suffering. We're going to turn peaceful technology into instruments of revenge. After today, we'll never be the same species that first reached for the stars." The fleet continued toward Nexus Prime in grim silence. In the weapons bays, human engineers made final preparations to devices that would have horrified their Valoran teachers. Dr. Sarah Kim had spent months perfecting her biological weapons, viruses that targeted specific alien DNA, healing rays, reversed to cause cellular breakdown, empathic amplifiers that could drive entire populations insane with guilt and fear. Captain Torres, now commanding a battle group of 50 ships, studied the approaching station. "Tactical analysis? Defenses are impressive," reported his tactical officer. "Energy shields that could stop a small moon, point defense systems, covering every approach vector, and a garrison of 2,000 warships." "Weaknesses?" "The same as always, sir. They're defending against a traditional attack. They expect us to come at them head-on with honor and predictable tactics." Torres smiled without humor. "Then let's disappoint them. Signal the fleet. We execute Plan Lazarus in 30 minutes." Plan Lazarus was named after the human myth of resurrection from death. It was designed to appear to fail spectacularly, drawing the Council's entire defense fleet into a trap that would leave Nexus Prime defenseless. The first wave of human ships approached the station directly, just as the Council expected. They flew in formation, broadcasting surrender requests and peace offerings. The Council's defensive fleet moved to intercept, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Admiral Zethkar commanded the defense from his flagship, the massive dreadnought. "Extinction. Human fleet is in range. They're trying to surrender." "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they're requesting safe passage to the station. They claim to have important information about stopping the human war effort." Zethkar's laugh was like grinding stone. "Too late for that. The Omega weapon charges in 5 hours. Soon there will be no Earth to surrender." He opened communications to the human fleet. "This is Admiral Zethkar of the Galactic Council Defense Force. Your surrender is rejected. Prepare to be destroyed." What happened next looked like a massacre. The Council fleet opened fire with overwhelming force, and human ships began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. Within minutes, 200 human vessels were nothing but debris. The survivors fled in apparent panic, scattering in all directions. "Sir," reported Zethkar's communications officer, "human fleet is in full retreat. They're broadcasting emergency signals calling for evacuation." "Pursue them," Zethkar ordered. "Don't let a single ship escape. Today, we end this war." The Council Defense Fleet broke formation to chase the fleeing humans, leaving Nexus Prime protected only by its automated defenses. This was exactly what Admiral Chen had been waiting for. "All Ghost Fleet vessels," she broadcast. "Phase 2 is authorized. Reveal yourselves." Throughout the Nexus system, human ships that had been hiding in stealth mode suddenly appeared. The destroyed vessels from the first wave had been decoys, sophisticated holograms designed to fool Council sensors. The real Ghost Fleet had been waiting in the shadows for the defenders to leave their posts. Captain Torres led the assault on Nexus Prime's defensive grid. His ships moved like wolves through the automated defenses, too small and fast for the massive weapons to target effectively. "Weapons free," he ordered. "Target all shield generators." The attack on Nexus Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships didn't try to destroy the station. Instead, they systematically disabled its defenses while preparing for something far worse. "Shield generators down," reported Torres's tactical officer. "Station is defenseless." "Excellent. Signal. Dr. Kim's ship. Begin deployment of the Guilt Engine." The Guilt Engine was humanity's most horrifying weapon, built from Valoran empathic technology that had once been used for healing emotional trauma. Dr. Kim had spent months reversing its function, turning it into a device that could project memories and emotions across vast distances. The device activated from a specially modified hospital ship, its healing bays converted into broadcast centers. But instead of sending comfort and peace, it transmitted the final memories of every Valoran who had died on Valoran Prime. Every resident of Nexus Prime suddenly experienced Nelthara's terror as Council soldiers approached. They felt Cathara's confusion as his peaceful world burned. They lived through the deaths of 3 billion innocent beings who had committed no crime except friendship with humanity. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across Nexus Prime, beings who had never known war suddenly understood what their council had done in their name. The guilt was crushing, overwhelming, driving many to madness. Entire districts shut down as their populations collapsed under the weight of Valoran, suffering. "Admiral," reported Chen's communications officer, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from all levels of the station. They're begging us to stop the empathic bombardment." Chen watched the tactical displays showing Nexus Prime's collapse. She felt sick at what humanity had become, but she also remembered the crystal gardens of Valoran Prime and the silver tears of dying children. "Continue the bombardment," she ordered. "They need to understand the full cost of their genocide." Admiral Zethkar, still chasing human decoys through the outer system, received the reports from Nexus Prime with disbelief. "What do you mean they're using our own emotions against us?" "Sir," his communications officer's voice was strained, "the humans have somehow weaponized empathy. Every being on Nexus Prime is experiencing the memories of the dead Valorans. The psychological impact is complete. Recall all ships immediately. We have to defend the capital." "Sir, there's more. The human fleet commander is requesting communication with the High Council. She says she has terms for ending the assault." Zethkar snarled in frustration. "Put her through." Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen, her expression cold as space. Behind her, displays showed the continuing collapse of Nexus Prime as the Guilt Engine continued its terrible work. "Admiral Zethkar, I believe you wanted to speak with someone in charge of the human military. What are your terms?" he demanded. "Unconditional surrender of the Galactic Council, immediate shutdown of the Omega weapon, establishment of new galactic laws that prevent any species from committing genocide ever again." "And if we refuse?" Chen's smile was sharp enough to cut. "Then we continue our demonstration until every being in this system understands exactly what you did to our friends. And then we move on to the next council world, and the next, until the galaxy learns that there are consequences for murdering innocents." The council's response came from High Counselor Vexathara herself. The ethereal's energy form appeared shimmering with terror and defeat. We accept your terms. Please stop the empathic weapon. Our people are suffering beyond endurance." "Suffering?" Chen's voice turned cold as winter. 3 billion Valorans suffered when you killed them for the crime of friendship. Your people are only experiencing a fraction of that pain. We understand. Now, we were wrong. Please show mercy." Chen looked around her bridge at the young human officers who had grown up during the war preparations. They were no longer the hopeful, curious species that had first reached for the stars. War had changed them, hardened them, turned them into something that frightened even themselves. "Very well," she said finally. The empathic bombardment will cease in 1 hour. That should be enough time for everyone on Nexus Prime to fully experience what you did to the Valorans. Consider it an education in the consequences of genocide.